Okay, here I am. We're gonna minimize that. I'm getting started on something that has come to my mind and attention, as I'm not somebody who ever got into, a big degree or a profession. I actually started working as a driving instructor and learned from in turn learning to teach others from them and what they struggled with and what they learned through and dealt with, even those of whom who discriminated or ridiculed or even had difficulties, mainly coming from those who were the adult caretakers. I still learned to keep going on through my job, and I dealt with a lot of scrutiny. Even as a white Caucasian male, you still deal with this, even if you're trying to become, a successful entrepreneur. Even running a business such as a driving school, for example, in the format and act of actually driving yourself in a career. This is what the real problem is here in America, which I want to touch real basis on. I did say this in a previous video. Not everybody that races on foot drives necessarily fast, and not everybody that drives really fast races on foot. You can sometimes get a switcheroo and a mix-up, where the person who's walking really slow is a high-speed driver, and the vice versa. If somebody who's racing really fast on foot is a really slow or casual driver, and then you can get the mix of those who have that, uncertainty, reactive kind of walk and strut or movement, and they're kind of sporadic, kind of all over the place kind of driving. They can change and interconnect, kind of like a hybrid. Whatever the case, I'll roll my eyes at that because where I live here in Florida, it seems everybody enjoys wasting gas, racing. The law enforcement is nothing compared to where I came from in my state, where they actually cared about speeding. And down here, it's like if you want to speed and get in a wreck, go ahead. We'll clean up the mess after you've already gotten into a wreck. And people should obviously know, don't use your car as a weapon. I've already had somebody do it to me a ways back. Somebody actually deliberately tried to throw their Jeep Wrangler straight into the side of my truck on the highway just because they got aggravated and aggressive over the fact that I did not allow them into the left lane when there was not really any space to share. I was already in that left lane, and they tried to come up on the middle passing lane to cut in front but couldn't make it due to another slower vehicle in front of them. I think it was a tractor trailer. That day there was numerous ones. And then when I eventually passed that on the left, got into another point where there was another larger vehicle in the middle lane, another smaller truck or trailer. I got all the way over to the right. That driver flew up on the outside left, tried to shotgun, just fly up through that side. And as I was coming out on the other side, on the slow lane, slowing down and reducing my speed, this driver comes launching at me as I am slowing down my speed from the great exorbitant speed that I had pushed myself to, just trying to get up and out of the way of this driver and then deal with the other traffic flow. This driver decides when he gets out on the other side, he's not going to just continue on his way. He's actually going to launch his vehicle directly across at me in front of that other vehicle that was already going slower. With barely about his own vehicle length, which is extremely dangerous. I just flew straight across it. My only objective was to catch it in my peripheral vision and say, oh my gosh, I got to get off the highway, I got to jump off. And even as I go to go jump off and he fails to hit me, he then throws his middle finger, throws the bird at me, right? Okay, and this is just a format of how aggressive and manipulative some people are when they drive. Same thing with how they treat people in relationships. They drive it like it's a race and they're always in a rush. And then when you ask them why you're in a rush, they say, no, I'm not. It's always a counterintuitive battle. And you just wish people would just tell the truth. And that's why I'm here today to explain this. Somebody who's been through a real life situation like that. I'm worried about where our country's headed. And I'm worried about where Republicans are taking their own party. Americans were already divided long before Trump became president, long before the topics of discussion of Trumpism and Trump loyalists and far right-winging extremist types, those of whom who decorate themselves, and some of which have already been well known in the attack of the Capitol riot, which they'll claim was a peaceful protest. It was definitely not peaceful. People died, people suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, and there are police officers and victims of American citizens who dealt with those traumatic events. And my point isn't about the attack on the Capitol. My point is it's about the future of our government. Our government is a swamp because the American people have become the swamp. That's the real truth. They claimed that the swamp was our current government before Trump got involved, and he said he was going to clear out the swamp, he's going to purge it. No, he actually showed us how ugly the swamp really is. So in a good and bad way, like a double-edged razor sword, those of whom who did not want to vote that year during Trump versus Hillary allowed Trump to win. That's the real truth, because there are many people who just don't vote. Obama's presidency, even though I've said in a previous video, I'm not proud that I had to vote for him the first year. The only reason why I did is because he did do something that no other politician has ever done in a long time. He brought a lot of young people to the table. He brought a lot of younger people into politics. He brought a lot of attention to the matter and the focus where our country's headed and where we're going. And then after his term, his second term, I'll say, which I did not vote for him, didn't vote for anybody, didn't agree with Romney. I just chose not to vote. I think that's the only year I did not vote. I've now come to the conclusion that I can't vote for Republican because none of their stances are good for this country. It's selling out all the middle class and poor to the rich. And the rich aren't to blame. They're not the enemy. They're simply the man on the other side who's getting all the reap rewards because that's what we, the Americans, are allowing to happen. We're not standing up for our freedoms. We're not fighting hard enough. And eventually what's going to end up happening, and where I got this idea from more than one occasion, not just by movies like the Star Wars franchise, where you have the Emperor, and then you had the Galactic Senate, you had the squabbling delegates. And if you watch that movie and you watch the politics side of it and separate the Star Wars aspect with the lightsabers and the Jedi and all this other stuff, there is a really creepy, eerie similarity between Star Wars' Galactic Republic and the whole function of the government and how things get done, and similar to our current day and age, nothing gets done. It's just nothing gets done. And evil's afoot everywhere. And things are being spread, and lies and misconception, and it's a constant battle. There's misinformation everywhere, floating throughout. And people are selling this furthermore as they get more into it. So what's happening is Republicans who vote for Republicans, of those who are in the poor or middle class, even those who are rich, they're selling the country out to those of whom who are in those packs and the wealthy top percentage. Not the 1%, just in general, anybody that makes more than $100,000 a year. They're giving away the Americans who wish that we had a smaller, less controlling government. And who's pushing for more government control? The Democrats. And guess what? That's actually normal for them. They haven't changed. They're the same. Well, I wouldn't say they haven't changed. They went from being racist before they turned into anti-racists. And Republicans went from being racist to now... they went from being anti-racist to now they don't necessarily claim themselves racist, but they don't really talk a lot about race-related issues and support a lot of race-important policies. And I'm not going to say that's all Republicans. I'm just saying the ones that actually get into becoming president. Yeah. So you want a shocking fact? You want a really ugly fact? Fallout 3, the game, including the entire Fallout franchise, made by Todd Howard and his oh-so-blasphemous downfall of Fallout 76. Watch the Internet Historian. You'll get a funny laugh out of that 26-minute video as he rants on, but he did a very good job on that video. But point clear and to the frank aspect of this, where I'm getting at in this whole entire point, I'm trying to make a reference. Fallout 3 captured a beautifully scripted fictional story based on a 1950s genre that embraced nuclear power cars, nuclear power vacuums, nuclear power microwaves, nuclear power, you name it. It's nuclear powered. Weapons, power armor suits that protect against radiation, going into war or combat, power plants, cars, as I said before, that run on this, trains, buses, you name it. They're all nuclear powered, nuclear fission. Now, we are afraid of nuclear power, and we've always been, kind of quick to point out that it's too dangerous and unvolatile. And in fact, actually, it's been proven it's clean, it's natural, and it's safe as long as it's done in the right, safe manner. But here's the scary part. The terrorists that blew up the World Trade Centers, as Bill Maher, as if you watch this and look it up on YouTube, I definitely implore you to look this up. Bill Maher made a wonderful statement that I still stand by today and still will reiterate this. He said specifically that back in the late 80s, terrorists attempted to bomb or blow up our World Trade Center, and they failed. They failed because they came with a van, I should say, the van, not bus, and didn't bring enough explosives and failed because they got caught. But then they came back in 2001 and they pulled off 9/11 with 2 jet planes, and they devastated our country. Our country that was, I wouldn't say divided, but we were completely unbeknownst to what was going on in the rest of the world. We thought we were doing just fine. I'm sure there was talk or discussion, or there was previous past wars and conflicts and things going on with the Bush administration during that time in that era. But there was obviously enough turmoil going on at home. Terrorists decided it was a good time to attack our country because Americans are distracted. Perfect time. They're divided. Let's attack their freedoms. And here's the scary part. I could go into Congress right now, ask them to turn off all the cameras, even be lucky enough to even be in there, to even talk with every senator, let alone even have any one of them show up to even care. I could tell them the truth, as if I'm somebody from the future who sees this happening. But no one would listen. And here's the reason why I say you should listen, why this should become an internet movement, because the internet is powerful. A voice and a message can be spread. And what could be spread is protecting our country, protecting our America. I don't want to run for president. I've got a heart situation here, okay? I can't get too worked up or too stressed. I can't have too much responsibility on my shoulder. But I have the philosophy, as what goes with my name, as my name is Philip. It's ironic that, and that's with one L, by the way. Most people confuse me with two L's. And there are the Phillips on the other side that know this side, and they get called Philip with one L, and they're like, no, I got two L's. Here's my point. Case in point. It's short and sweet. The Americans are divided. The Republicans have become divided. The Democrats, the same old donkeys that they've always been, the same as Republicans being the big old elephants trumpeting and putting themselves out there to spread and push on emotions and feelings like they've always played on. They're doing that even more so now on more dangerous rhetoric, fear-mongering, playing on people's fear, their emotions. It's further dividing our country even further. So Republicans aren't exactly stoking the fire. They're setting a fire themselves. They're actually setting the fire because it was already created by people who wanted it. People who invoked that fear between conservatives and libertarians and right-wingists and far-out, centralists. You can say not even just your, middle-of-the-road types, even your environmentalists and your, outcast party types. But the point is that Republicans have now made this a part of their agenda because they're afraid of their party falling apart. It's the truth. And the Americans need to stand up and say, we know you're afraid of losing your party. We know you're afraid of the threat that has happened since Donald Trump infiltrated and replaced the Lincoln, which is what, the Lincoln Party, which is what the Republican Party used to be founded by. The Lincoln Project was actually come up to fight and combat this. And I am standing to say that the Lincoln Project, if it hadn't been for them, the Republican Party would be in complete disarray, and Donald Trump would still basically be pulling the authoritarian rule over our country right now. I mean, his message, okay, in history is that he performed terribly during that attack on the Capitol. But the real scary factor is, back to that Fallout reference I made, in the future of the Fallout universe, there are no such thing as Republicans. Do you know what there is? They're Democrats, and they're extremely, and I do refer to this, extremely extremely far left. I mean, they're so far left, they have control over everybody's freedom, and they're in a faction, okay? I'm referring to Fallout New Vegas, the NCR. They're the most democratically controlled extremist group you can imagine, okay? They want the power, and they want control of everything. And everyone has to do things their way to live underneath their rule, okay? They even enforce their own federal currency in game. When in the original Fallout universe, there wasn't an actual core basis, but it later turned to caps. And I'm talking about in Fallout, the earlier Fallout titles, there wasn't really a main, floating point, but then it eventually became caps. So the point of what I'm getting at here, the scariest function of what this reality is, we're allowing Republicans to hear the wrong messages as they are the wealthiest people that run our country, all of those people that represent the Republican Party. We're allowing them to, in turn, destroy the Republican Party. I can't even vote for Republican. I'm actually stuck left with Democrats, and they're so all up in their rear ends, I can't even tell who's the best fit. And why did I pick Joe Biden? Not because he had mental brain, issues, and it's because of a brain aneurysm. Everyone's calling him stupid and ignorant and dumb and worthless and pointless and the worst president ever. The guy's only had 10 months to fix all the problems that Donald Trump wouldn't even focus on. So they're both. You're hypocritical if you call Joe Biden unfit and he should be removed. You're a hypocrite. You're the biggest hypocrite. You should leave the man in there and let him see what he can do as president, because I guarantee you, as an American, good luck. You wouldn't be able to get that either. Oh, quick 1 second here. So, the point of what I'm getting at, the core root of the real issue, the real core aspect, is that if we don't start stopping this confusion and this dilemma while we enjoy this ridiculous failed version of The Apprentice with Donald Trump now, who doesn't even have a TV show anymore, just want to see him say more false rhetoric, and that's the only thing we want out of him, we're literally burning our country to the ground. And guess what? Terrorists are watching. They're out there. And I'm sure our government knows this. But the scary part is a lot of Americans just aren't paying attention. And you think I'm anti-American because I say this? No, I say we need to protect our country. We need people to stand up and stop endorsing an authoritarian ruler. Or, if we're going to endorse an authoritarian ruler, put him in check. Tell him to do things our way. Follow the American people's way. Protect the American people's interests. Protect our jobs, our businesses, our well-being, our pursuit of happiness, our life and our liberty, and justice for all. Simple and point. to the fact. Leave it at that. Thank you for joining me. And hopefully, with more that I have to say about this, you'll join me on the next one. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching.